More about the power process, specifically disruption of the power process, which is mainly due to change being imposed upon us. So every modern society imposes change on people. Throughout the past few thousand years, all of the empires have imposed change on people, yet man continues to seek peace and freedom to get away from those things. So most recently here in America, the white European man claimed the New World for himself because he was trying to escape the modern industrial society in Europe over the past 500 years or so. So the example I've used before is like in the 1800s or the 19th century frontiersman. He had complete autonomy in the power process by setting out on foot to just explore the wilderness. He created change himself with his own decisions as he went out to the wild. And although it's true that he might drown in a raging river or not survive the winter or get killed by a bear, it was his decision. He was in control of the process. But in today's modern industrial society, change is imposed upon us. It's not our own decisions usually that might get us killed, it's somebody else's decisions. Of course, there are exceptions to that rule. Dumbasses racing cars and motorcycles on interstates who might crash and die. And I used to do stuff like that. But their decision to go super fast and get them killed, is on them, it's their decision. What usually happens more often than them just going fast is somebody pulls out in front of them or somebody else does something that gets them killed. And yeah, it's still their fault for going fast. But the point is, our own decisions to do something wild and crazy are not always what get us killed. It's those around us and their decisions that affect us. And that's not really that great of an example. So let me move on to something else. The essay that was published in 1995 quotes a Harvard professor as saying that we live in a world in which relatively few people, maybe 500 or 1,000, make the important decisions. And it goes on to say our lives are dependent upon, air and water pollution and safety at a nuclear power plant and the prospect of nuclear war and pesticides and forever chemicals in our food and water system and the economy. We're forced to be dependent upon this economy, which does affect our survival and whether we live or die in certain situations in modern industrial society. And we can't get away from it. But that economy, the health of that economy, and therefore our health and survival, is based upon the decisions made by economists and government officials and corporate executives who are obviously have their own best interests at heart about their own power. They don't care about us. Even the more independent modern man, he has some control over, or at least some responsibility for the physical security of himself and his family. He can defend his home if he needs to. But he still doesn't have the psychological security. He doesn't feel secure because he has no control over the world he lives in, the nuclear power plants and nuclear war and economy and stuff. So in terms of the power process, he has a goal of providing security for himself and his family. But it's not attainable because too much is in the hands of others. And that leaves him feeling, frustrated and powerless. So primitive man, before modern industrial society, he certainly wasn't guaranteed success in all of his endeavors, but he was far from helpless, okay? Modern man is threatened by so many things beyond his reach and the decision of others that he feels helpless, okay? So primitive man, caveman, up until the past few hundred years, whatever you call him, the threats to his safety and security and survival, they were things in the natural world, and they were by natural chance, okay? But modern man, the threats to him are man-made. They're artificial, they're not natural. And they're not the result of chance, they're the result of things being imposed upon him. Again, the economy, mask mandates to get those chemical injections that are going to destroy your health. Living under constant cell phone and satellite radiation that's disrupting every cell in your body, and there's no way to get away from it. And if you complain about it, they think you're crazy. So for those amongst us who think that we do have some freedom, in modern industrial society, we really only have freedom over unimportant things. But anything that modern society deems important or that affects our interactions with the big industrial society machine, we're not allowed to make those decisions, okay? They're regulated. As you may have noticed, if you think about it, the people who do seem the most free and happy and content and at peace are those who have moved away or detached themselves as much as possible from industrial society, the people living on the fringes, the permaculture people, the people who are detaching themselves from modern industrial society tend to be more happy and at peace because they have some control over the power process and control over their own lives. The other thing is life stages and death that we worry about. So primitive man, he passes through each life stage or season of his life and goes through the experiences of the power process to leave him satisfied with each stage of his life. So he learns to hunt and fight and defend as a young man. And he goes through that, and he's content with that. And then he comes to the phase of life where he's raising a family and providing for a family and child rearing and all these things. And once he's gone through that, he's, again, content with that. And he doesn't have any remorse or regret or fear about moving on to the final phase of life or old age, because he's experienced the power process in each phase. But modern man strongly resists the concept of death and aging because he's never really put his body to any great physical or physiological use. He's never used his powers. So he tries to maintain his strength in age, or he has a midlife crisis, or he does anything he can to feel younger because he's never done anything of value. He didn't really accomplish anything meaningful. Regardless of how many kids he's raised or how well he's provided for his family or what kind of successful business he has, he usually is fighting or resisting death because he doesn't feel like he's fulfilled himself in an evolutionary, physiological way. Or you've got the other group of people, the much larger group, I think, have been so brainwashed and propagandized and deceived by the government and entertainment industries that he just remains a dutiful consumer of industrial society goods and items and follows the rules laid down before him and the entertainment distractions like football games and Olympics as he just heads towards death without a fight, without resistance, without a purpose, completely content with his life of useless servitude to the system. Most people living in the modern industrial societies, Western world, are following along and just completely content with their blind servitude. A few of them are realizing that they have not fulfilled the power process throughout their lives, and they're panicking, and they're seeking some fulfillment, and they're having midlife crises or whatever. And then there's a tiny proportion, a very few, that realize that they have to remove themselves from industrial society to have any amount of fulfillment or purpose or contentness in their lives. However, obviously, more of us aren't doing that because it's difficult. You have to participate in modern society to get out of the industrial society. You have to go through the real estate process, the banking process of buying and finding your own land. And then once you have your own land, modern industrial society imposes rules on you there too. There's a certain type of dwelling you can build, or you can't grow your own food, or you can't collect your own water, or you have to build shelter to their standards, building permits and approval and septic systems. And you have to use the non-breathable Tyvek house wrap on your house. Like, you can't get a building permit, you can't get a house past inspection without that stuff on there. And that stuff just traps moisture in your houses, causes mold. You've got the FDA and the USDA forbidding you or suing you or seizing your property if you sell raw milk to your neighbors to make a little money. And then you've got to pay taxes on this land because you're in a county that's just an artificially drawn line on a map. So even when you get off grid, they're still controlling you and limiting you. The point of this article, the point is peace and satisfaction, even on your own land or off grid or outside of the confines of industrial society. That is the pursuit of life and liberty and happiness and the power process. And it requires great effort and resilience and courage and strength and fortitude on your part. But it is just that effort and autonomy that you exercise in attaining that goal that fulfills the power process. And that's what provides fulfillment and contentness and happiness in your life. Thanks.